Steve, are you not entertained? Right off the bat with the Steve raid. Greetings, everybody, and greetings, everybody from Steve's channel. Hope everybody is having a great one. Steve, thank you so much for that awesome raid. We shall celebrate with the Steve swords. Hope everybody's having a good one. Yeah, so welcome everybody. My name is Shane. I am a history teacher by trade. I teach history at college here where I live. And on the stream here, which we call Adventures in History, we talk about history, but we do it in a way that's not super boring, right? It's approachable, and we can make jokes and hang out and goof off. And, you know, we can learn about stuff in a non-threatening way, because goodness knows this is not what many people would consider a threatening face. For those of you that do not already know Steve, I hope everybody knows Steve, considering most of the people that just rated in are from Steve's channel. But if you do not know Steve, you should totally go follow Steve Sketches, who is a great artist, a really great guy, spends a lot of his time giving back to his community through basically free art lessons for the moment. Hey, there's Steve Nigerian. We'll give the old Steve Nigerian a shout out too. How's it going, Steve? Good to see you, my friend. Go check out Steve Nigerian's art channel. Steve is also an artist, usually known for drawing dragons, but has recently been working on a piece that is sort of reminiscent of maybe a Shinto shrine or a Japanese pagoda. Really beautiful stuff. I tend to lurk in there when he's not looking. Mostly because I know that if I started chatting, we would just end up arguing about Tolkien stuff and it would get nerd ugly. So history was a snooze fest when you were in school, but you have me to bother about it and it makes it interesting. Awesome. So let me say hey to everybody. Hey Joey, good to see you. Welcome. Hey Finesse Fantasy, good to see you as well. KP, my friend, welcome. Garden Cat 42, hello. Good to see you. There's Brittany. Hey, Rose Fairy. I feel like I know so much about you already, Rose Fairy, and I'm sure that Steve has probably rambled about me to you as well. Bum ba dum dum da dum 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 da dum dum dum. Steve Nigerian, thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure, my friend. Hey, Afagage, good to see you. So there's Steve. Have I caught up? I'm almost caught up. And there's a Figment. Good to see you, Figment. Hope everything's well in your world. And a Vern. Hey, Vern. Good to see you. Hope everything's going well in the NYC. If history is boring, the teacher is teaching it wrong. I tend to agree. History is just a story of a whole bunch of people, right? So people do dumb stuff. People do great stuff. People make horrible decisions. People make good decisions. It's just it's like almost watching a reality show. If it's done in the right way, you can follow the ups and the downs of things. You're doing well. Got that first vaccine shot. Whoop whoop. Good to hear. Hope everybody is considering that. You'll defend the honor of Fingolfin to the death. Well, that's good, because he got killed. Which is a low blow. I know, he got killed by Morgoth, which is, you know, if you're going to go out, one-on-one combat with Morgoth is probably the best way to go out, right? Many, many horrible decisions. This is true. Bum-ba-dum. Garden Cat, thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. The best stories are always the ones that are true. You can never top what actually happened. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And if you have read something in a fantasy novel, or if you have read something in a sci-fi novel, and you're like, that probably would never happen, you never know, it might. Just a couple of days ago, Steve and I were chatting about Steve's creative world that he's building, which is super fascinating, by the way. You should go bug Steve about it, and he'll maybe give you little nuggets of it. Anyway, and he wanted to have this particular catastrophic event, and I started talking about some stuff, and he's like, wait, that actually happened? I'm like, yeah, Yeah, it did. It actually happened. We ended up spending a long time talking about the collapse of the Bronze Age and how people went from living in big cities of tens of thousands of people to basically reverting to hunter-gatherers in places like Greece and this coast of Turkey over here. So it's crazy stuff, history. History, the telenovela. Indeed. People are wild? How is that not interesting? History is just documenting how wild people have always been. That's it. That's it. You're not entirely sold on the vaccines? I mean, do we know the long-term effects of staying alive? I believe breathing is probably one of those long-term effects. You'll be right back. You need to exchange water bowls and pick up the puppy poop. Oh yeah, we got puppy stuff here too. 12,000 BC, everything fall to crap. Your favorite story is the dead pope they put on trial, and if he didn't answer the questions, he was guilty. Then they dragged his dead corpse through the streets, and it disintegrated. Yup! Catholic Church was pretty big on putting dead people on trial. They did that to several people that were sort of early, well, Protestant is the wrong word, but early Catholic reformers in the 1400s. They dug up one guy and put him on trial, and then had his body burned dead, and then threw his remains into a river. So there you go. Yeah, weird stuff. But so let me tell you a little bit about what we do here. We talk about history, of course, and we talk about history in a way that is, again, easy and approachable and fun. But we are covering history. Oh, yeah, there's Wycliffe. Okay, see, Rosemary, this is why I feel like Steve has told me that we would probably have good conversations. Thousands of years of betrayals, and Benedict Arnold is the guy whose name is synonymous with it. Well, that guy in Judas, you know. Kind of hard to get away from Judas. So we are covering history. We're doing it in chronological order, but we are doing it in phases, because if we were just trying to teach history like 1 year at a time, it would effectively be impossible to get everything done. So we have been looking at history in sort of century-long chunks, and the chunk that we are in right now is from 100 of our Common Era, or AD, depending on which one you want to use, to 200. So the second century of the years going up instead of down. And we do so in a pattern. We start over here in Asia, and we move our way across to the West, and then we move our way over here recently to the Americas. So in this phase, so far, we have talked about Korea and Japan and the Han Dynasty, and two groups of people up here. One group called the Xiongnu, which were basically right about here, and then the Xianbei, who are right about here. And today's stream, we are going to talk about a big empire. You got to head out, Steve? Well, it's good to see you. Thanks for the follow. See you around, and we can have good-natured discussions, right? Take it easy. Have a good night. So right about here, there's going to be a big empire, and it's called the Kushan Empire. And this is something that a lot of people have never heard of before, because, well, you just don't usually get it in history class. I talk about this all of the time here on stream, but the way that we teach history in the United States is not specifically designed to give an understanding of history. It's mostly just to fill what people think you should know out of a list of historical events. And it's all sort of like rote memorization and sort of regurgitation, yada, yada, yada. But if we're looking at history in a sort of complete ideology, sort of a global network of events, you realize that there's a lot more stuff going on than the stuff that you talk about in history class. So in high school, you might only had 1 year to get all of world history in. In college, you have 2 classes to do all of world history. And this particular part of world history gets skipped over the most, because you have what is effectively 1500 AD as a cutoff point. So you have to do everything from the very beginning of humanity, when we became humans, and then all the way up to 1500 AD. That's 200,000+ years of human history, right? And then the second half of world history just focuses on about 500 years. So this part of world history especially skips over lots and lots of stuff. So we're not going to do that here. We are going to talk about all the cool things. Okie dokie. So you know you love talking. Yeah, I love talking. It sounds like I'm making all of this up. Yes, I just want to insert my fanfics into the stream. This is accurate. This is Shane's history fanfiction. By the way, you should never believe that a word that I say. You should always understand that I am a fallible individual. I don't know everything. I try my absolute best to stay on a non-polarizing side of an issue, and I just try to state what is a fact. But you are welcome to politely disagree with me. You are welcome to ask as many questions as you want. We're all friends here, and we can have civil discourse, and we can have difference of opinion and still be friends with each other, right? Because I think that there's a lot of that missing in our world today. Sounds about right. Hey, a Batbird, good to see you. That was exactly your middle school and high school experience. There we go. Rule number 1, the doctor lies. You're all the cool things. No, Batbird. I am fallible. Well, shoot. Excuse me while I go through out all these notes. Rule number 1 is people are idiots, and I am a person, so I am an idiot too. Just kidding. I don't take notes. There is a hat for that, and if you want to know my opinion, you can summon the opinion hat, and I'll give you my opinion. Pretty unfiltered most of the time. So, so I do need to sort of do a little bit of housekeeping because I realized last Thursday that I had done a little bit of I needed to do some due diligence. Most notably, I realized that I have people subbing at the tier 2 set, but I did not have a tier 2 emote set. So people were not getting the full benefit of that tier 2. Well, I would like to introduce everyone to our new tier 2 emote, which is the White Tree of Gondor, which is super honkin' cool. I spent several hours working on that in Photoshop. I had to do something Tolkien-esque because I don't have a Tolkien emote yet, so there we go. So if you subscribe at the tier 2, or if you want to hang out in the Discord, you can use that super cool White Tree of Gondor. There's the link to the Discord. You're going to fail the test. Steve has never failed a test. Oh, right off the top. Here we go with the opinion hat. We'll just come in hot. All right, let me get it. The opinion hat, which of course is a Peaky Blinder cap, which makes me look like I'm an extra on the Peaky Blinders. Any thoughts on the new bill in Texas about not being able to teach about racism? I have tons of opinions on this, and let me tell you my opinion about this whole debate about critical race theory, which is the sort of buzzword that the media has latched onto in the last couple of months. Let me break down a little bit right off the top. Hey, critical race theory has been around since the 1970s. That's right, it's not new. It's 40-something years old. And yeah, out of nowhere, it's like, we're going to get all angry about it. Why are we getting angry about it? Well, here's the deal. The reason we're getting angry about it, and I say we as like a people, is because of a couple of different things going on. First off, there was a particular set of essays published that goes under the title The 1619 Project, which was essentially begun as an examination of legal precedent in the history of the United States that sought to expose racial prejudices and racism in legal structures of the past of the United States that went all the way back to 1619, which is the date when the first African slaves showed up in the British colonies. Solomon was right? No, I thought we were original. Oh, yeah, for real. Nothing new under the sun. Koheleth had that one like on point. So he also ran it by his legal team before he threw it out. Yeah. If you're looking at the size of the new I think you could have done the one with your face subbed for the Eye of Sauron. I don't know if it would have worked. That might be the tier 3 emote. Anyway, so we did not start the fire. No. So the 1619 Project kicked off a very large debate in the United States over the use of critical race theory and whether or not the 1619 Project work should be used as the basis of new scholarship and as the basis of new curriculum inside of the United States. And some people said, yes, it is good for us to be honest that America has had a history of racism, and other people got really bent out of shape because you're not supposed to say slavery. But, you know, it happened. It was there for hundreds of years. You can't get away from it. We have only just recently gotten to the point where the history of the United States is about equal with us being a country and having slaves and us being a country and not having slaves. But if you want to take us back to colonization, the history of the United States has more slavery in its history than not slavery in its history. It's something that happened, and we have to be honest about it. And to deny that is dumb, and to make that seem less bad is dumb, and to not admit that it was a horrible thing that we should be sorry for is dumb. So here's the thing. The 1619 Project started a big fury, especially in the conservative wing of the American politics. So that sets off this new project that ends up getting put out called the 1776 Project, which asserts to basically say that America was the greatest thing ever, and push back against some of the assertions in the 1619 Project. Now, this is my opinion. You see me wearing the opinion hat. And before everybody gets up in an uproar, let me say that I have done my homework on this. You are welcome to disagree. The 1619 Project has a lot of good stuff in it, but it also has some things that it takes too far. And the authors have said as much. So the people that wrote that have actually walked back some of the assertions that they made and tried to reclassify some of the statements that they have made. This is not me saying that they have done it themselves. So there are some issues with taking the 1619 Project at face value, just like there are problems taking anything at face value, because everything is written by humans, and guess what? We're all biased. Everybody has a bias. If you got upset when I said that everybody has a bias, it's because you have a bias and you think that you don't have one, which makes you have one. Everybody has a bias. Everybody is a human being. We all write things and say things and teach things and do things through our own lens, which is the best that we can do sometimes to avoid that, but it is what happens. So the 1776 Project has a lot of stuff in it that is similarly questionable material. What we really need to do is not focus on these particular packages of information and focus more on the big picture of we need to be more honest about what really happened. And you can do that without including the 1619 Project, and you can do that without including the 1776 Project. You can do that just by teaching history, right? Your biases have biases, right? So my opinion on the rules that are being proposed in Texas that says you can't say racism is bullcrap. I think that Texas is absolutely wrong for that, and unfortunately Texas has a disproportionate value on the textbook market in the United States because they have so many students, and unfortunately the Texas State School Board has a lot of sway over what gets put into curriculums, so I'm particularly worried that if they pass this garbage legislation that it's going to have ripple effects across the entire country. And that's a good point as well. Texas is moving towards being a purple state. I don't think it's as purple as the media would like to say it, but it is becoming more liberal because the population is shifting towards a more liberal, younger population. So there we go. There's my opinion on that. So I hope that answered all of your questions without getting me into too much hot water. Let me just say, to clarify everything, if anybody is in any question, I think racism is stupid. I think that human beings have way more in common than we are different. I think that we have to recognize that we do have differences, but those should not be the reasons that we think people are greater or less than other people. I think that what we can learn from history is that everybody screws stuff up, and lying about screwing something up is the best way to make sure that you do it again. So I think we all need to just kind of be honest. I think that we all need to work on trying to understand other people, regardless of where they come from, their history, their color, what we think about them. Just try to learn about people. Talk to people. Don't go on the internet and have arguments with folks. Go find a person that's different than you and sit down with them and talk with them. Forging a bond with somebody else is the greatest way to learn empathy. which is why I encourage everybody to travel so much. You never really understand how good it is until you go see how somebody else lives. And you never really understand how much alike you are to some other people until you see those other people and learn from those other people and talk with those other people. So if you are a racist, you're dumb. And I'll even take the opinion hat off and say that again. If you're a racist, you're an idiot. You should not be a racist. There's no reason to believe that one race is better than any other race, because to a large extent, race is sociologically constructed, and to a large extent, it is a part of our identity that not everybody has a clear-cut yes or no answer on, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be multiple. So deal with it. TikTok has gone over some girl posting pre-wedding pictures of her and it's a fiancé in a slave plantation theme. Oh, that's no good. You were with you until I said you were a human. Sorry, Moose, you can be a data crunching robot on the clock, but when you're hanging out in my room, you're a human. Hey, Cave, good to see you, my friend. Paradox is a king variant. Silly flashbacks. Always mad at other flashbacks over meaningless things. Pretty accurate. That wasn't a joke. They can't say racism. No, they're not supposed to talk about racism as a topic, according to this new bill. You know who should be in charge of making a curriculum? An educator. Shocking. But educators who agree with my ideology, please and thank you. Humors are bad and the best of us know it. Yes. Let's not bend history to match our perspectives. Absolutely. That's like saying don't talk about the Holocaust and no one mentions the Armenian genocide. Correct. Same principles. I don't think about the color red. Green is a lovely color. Shane is very hardline specious, though. He hates new types with a passion. I do. Those space psychic bullcrappers. There's only one race, and that's the human race. Bingo! I'm down with that. As long as you don't need to run, that's fine, okay? And Florida wants to register the political views of its educators. I think that's a horrible idea. I think that we shouldn't have labels about things that we can change our minds on, and we shouldn't try to force everybody into a false binary, right? Especially when the political parties in the United States don't necessarily represent most of the people that they are supposed to be representing, ideologically speaking, because there are no political parties that actually line up with the majority of what people believe in America. So there you go. Don't give Texans ideas now. All right, let's talk about the Kushan Empire. Right in here, who are this Kushan people and what are they up to and where do they come from? So if you have been hanging around in the stream or if you were with us in the last phase, you will know that we've already talked a little bit about the Kushan Empire. They were originally a group of tribal people that were sort of what we might call horse peoples. This does not mean that they are centaurs, by the way. This means that they are mostly nomadic and horses are a really big part of their culture. They began their life up in this region and were pushed out after the expansion of Chinese power and then subsequent Xiongnu power. They managed to make their way over into this area, which is what I lovingly refer to as the stands, because this is Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan and Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, and you don't know how many of those I made up or if all of those are actual countries, do you? Bactria into the future. Indeed, you had your hopes up with centaurs. Sorry, centaurs are more Greek, though we will talk about Greek mythology tonight quite a bit. Well, not quite a bit, but it'll come up. Anyway, so the Kushan Empire pushed out a group of people called the Greco-Bactrians and wrecked their world. Bum-ba-dum. Foul knavery. Foul knavery. I feel like I should say that in an old English accent. Thank you for the follow and welcome to the adventure. I think that might hit, that might put us at, yes, we are now at 550 followers, which means we are halfway towards hitting a 600 mark where we will have another History of Middle-earth stream. If you want to expedite having a History of Middle-earth stream, you can click down below us and you can see that we've got a couple of community goals going that you can donate to if you would so enjoy. Sorry for the interruption. Absolutely, no way. Don't ever worry about that. Questions are appreciated and tangents are welcome. 75,490 raised. We're almost, we are halfway there. Halfway there. Halfway there. Oh. Hey, Fox the Ghost, good to see you. And thanks for the follow. I saw that you followed a couple of days ago. Good to see you. Hey, Kelly. I don't know if I said hey to Kelly, but hey, Kelly, good to see you. All about the interruptions? Yes, Vern is the official Duke of Tangents in the stream. So anyway, over the course of the first century, the Kushan Empire is going to take over a good chunk of this central region right here. This is going to put them between two of the big empires of the world at the time, the Parthian Empire, which sat right here, and the Han Dynasty Chinese, which had expanded up into this region. So tonight, when we pick up, we're going to hit the golden age of the Kushan Empire. The period of time between about 100 AD or CE, however you want to call it, to 200 is going to be really great for these guys, and this is one of the cooler empires in the world that nobody really knows that much about. Because honestly, again, you don't get this on the bus tour, right? That's a username that definitely deserves ye old. Hey, Honeycomb, good to see you. See you sneaking in there with the donates. All right, so let's pick up with the first of our rulers that we are going to talk about. And if I get my screen text chat window open, his name is Vima Kadaphises. And you're like, his name is Feces. It's Kadaphises. And if you really want to, you can say Kadaphises, but he doesn't like you focusing on the poop. I'm going to just call him Vima. Because I think that's less scatologically inferring. Because he's actually a pretty good ruler. So this guy rules a fairly sizable kingdom of the Kushan Empire, and he's ruling from 95 to 127. Cat feces. Isn't that just baby mice? Ba-dum-bump, ba-dum-bump. Wow. So he rules from 95 to 127. And he looks like this. Oh, no, go away. Boom, there we go. So here he is. Whoa, no, I'm going backwards. Oop, sorry, there's my mouse. So here we go. This is old Vima here. Now, I had to do a little bit of alteration for our depiction of our god over here because this god is very clearly a man and has a particular piece of anatomy that is rather obviously inferring that he is virile here. So this is Vima. He's a pretty cool dude. He's got a nice beard, pretty cool hat. I'd give him a 6.5 or a 7 on hat coolness. Pretty neat stuff. So this little guy that you see right here is actually a symbol used to represent his dynasty, the Kushan ruling dynasty. You see this on a lot of their imagery, and here it is again over here. This is sort of like the, if you're familiar with Japanese history, this is like the Mon of their clan. So he's a dude. Got it. Yes. Yes, he is. Well, this guy over here is a god, and it is a male god, and yes, he is naked. There's a little bit of a debate about which god it is. It does have a trident, which is pretty frequently used to reference Shiva, but because the inscription here is not particularly referencing that, there's a lot of debate. And one thing that I can say about some of these coins is that because the Kushan Empire is located in this central area, because it has contacts with so many other people, there's going to be a lot of questions when it comes to where's the origin of this image, because these people are going to be in contact with the Iranians, they're going to be in contact with the Parthians, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Zoroastrians, the Chinese, the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks. All of these people are going to have contacts with the Kushan Empire, and the Kushan Empire is going to adopt lots and lots and lots of symbols from lots and lots of places. This really is a sort of melting pot empire. The population is widely disparate if you're looking at ethnic groups, if you're looking at linguistic groups, if you're looking at cultural heritage groups. There are a lot of different people that live inside the Kushan Empire, but somehow it's a great mix and it just works. The hat looks like a tea kettle, which is quite useful if you want tea or head covering. Sure. Why has he got a tea cozy on his head? 10 cool points to anyone that references the origin of that quote. Why has he got a tea cozy on his head? Not sure if anyone caught it, but you were trying to make a Donnie Darko reference. Let me see. Oh, baby. Oh, okay, I got you there. I got you, Joey. Yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen Donnie Darko. Removes tea from head, pours some tea in the cup of... Alrighty, why not both? Great with Shimmer. There we go. Okay, so Vima. What's up with Vima? What is he doing? Why is he a big deal? Why are we talking about him? Well, so Vima, to date in the Kushan Empire, was the richest ruler that the Kushan Empire had seen. Again, let's refer to the map here, and we need to remember one big thing. Well, we need to remember a couple of big things, but the biggest thing right now is this thing called the Silk Road. The Silk Road was the richest trade route in the world that connected China over here all the way over to the furthest reaches of the Roman Empire in Spain and Britain over here. But because of where the Kushan Empire is located, they sit at the middle. And that means they can control flows of trade coming into China and coming out of China, coming into Parthia, coming out of Parthia, going into Rome, coming out of Rome. And because they sit in the middle, they have excellent opportunities to make gaboodles and loads of money. So they do. So they do. Not to be confused with the Silk Road. Feels like Monty Python? No, it is not. It keeps his head warm. It does keep his head warm. Thanks, Saul. Anyway, it is Snatch. There we go. My wife and I just watched that recently. I love that movie. Really funny movie. Do you like Doug's? If you haven't seen that movie, you have no idea what I'm talking about. It's okay. You should go watch it. It's really hilarious. It's one of Guy Ritchie's early movies before they all started being kind of the same movie. Anyway, so Vima is rich as all get out. We know from excavating areas inside of his kingdom that he had trade that went from Han Dynasty to Parthia to Rome to Africa, all sorts of places we see stuff. But what is interesting, if we go look back at his coin, one of the things that's remarkable about his coin is that it's made of gold. I love gold. Yeah. He likes gold too. And this is the first time that the Kushan Empire is going to make gold coins. Because, you got to know when to gold them. Know when to fold them. And if you're not singing that song, I have not done my job. And I'll have to try harder next time. I apologize. But for those of you that might be new to the channel, I try to make a pun with the title for everything. And the goal is to try to find a song that's catchy enough that it gets stuck in your head. So, there we go. So, he's going to introduce gold coins. And you go, why is that a big deal? What's such a big deal about gold coins? Well, first off, to make gold coins, you have to have enough of a gold supply to make that happen. Which is going to be hard to do if you're not filthy stinking rich, because to put gold into circulation means that you have gold to spare. Because here's the thing about gold coins. When you mint gold coins, you don't get all of them back. And what are you talking about? Well, people will melt them down. People will lose them. People will bury them under the floorboards of their house. People will send them to foreign countries. You don't get all of that gold back. You have to have a surplus supply of gold sitting around to make coins. And that implies a certain level of richness, that there were only a couple of countries in the world that could do that. At this period of time, it's the Kushan Empire and Rome. Those are gold coins, period. That's it. That's it. There we go. Don't be, I'll get around to it. It's on your bucket list. I don't know what makes people want to sing that song compulsively when they hear it. You're not human. Moose, I have a feeling you sang a couple of lines of that in your head. I just feel it. A human being likes gold. Next, they'll tell me that the sun rises every morning. Right? Isn't it bad enough your sign won't let me sleep? I get you. I'm with you, Kenny. Kenny, come back. People will definitely forget their passwords and won't be able to access their gold coins ever again. Correct, right? So to make gold coins, you have to be willing to lose money. And you're like, well, that seems kind of counterproductive until you realize how rich the country was. They were rich. And it's not like the coins that they were making were dinky gold coins. They were comparable in both weight and purity to the Roman coins that were being circulated with gold over in the Roman Empire. These guys had a lot of money, is what I'm getting at. The cool thing about the Kushan Empire, and I mentioned this earlier, of them being such a crossroads, this shows up on their coinage because even prior to Vima, you're going to see people using multiple imageries. You're going to see people put Buddhist stuff on their coins. People put Hindu stuff on their coins. You're going to see them use multiple types of languages. You're going to see Greco-Bactrian language, Greek. You're going to see Kharoshthi. You're going to see Sanskrit. So the fact that they're putting all of these different things on their pieces of money and circulating those in regions goes to further the idea that these people understood how widely disparate their population was, and the rulers were trying to do their best to try to connect with the people that they were ruling. Crazy stuff, right? So gold doubloons are not a thing. So doubloons are a later coin that comes up, especially after the New World is discovered, and countries like Spain and Portugal, and then to a later extent France, have to figure out what to do with all this gold that they're stealing from the New World. I'm sorry, that they're claiming from the New World. Claiming. Don't attack me this way, uncalled for. So the important question, how do we integrate this information into a D&D setting? You set your D&D world in history, and then you throw in orcs. Right? That's what D&D adventurers are. They're out there looking for the lost gold, the equivalent of finding change in the couch cushions. Every 20 days, a coin goes missing from each person's bag. In safe locations, they can choose to stash some gold, but they have a 40% chance of forgetting where it's at after 10 days. Steal. Strategically transfer equipment to alternate location. There we go. That sounds like a military acronym. New World problems. What to do with all this gold? Sobs quietly. Yes, I know. That's a great meme, and we should probably turn that into an actual thing on the Discord channel. New World problems. You say that, but a friend of mine actually did that for a homebrew campaign. Hey, I don't see why not. It works. History's cool stuff. So, Vima is going to be super rich, so much so that he decides that he's going to build himself a new capital. And he moves his capital to a city called Bagram, or Bagram. And if you're familiar with anything that's been going on in Afghanistan over the last couple of years, aka the last 15 years, you'll know that Bagram is a location in Afghanistan where the United States had an airfield and a base, Bagram Air Force Base. Well, guess what? That used to be the ancient capital of the Kushan Empire. And Bagram is pretty centrally located if you're looking at the region. So again, he's controlling pretty much all of this area right in here. And he moves his capital to right about here, which is a nice place to catch trade coming out of India and coming into this region right here. Pretty good place, pretty cool place. History has gone off track because there should be no dragons. Gold coins are being hoarded, which is impacting the Kushan Empire. Your quest, kill the dragon. There we go. Right. The dragon's hanging out up here in this region called the Ghor. Ghor. There are some really, really interestingly unique people that live in this little chunk of territory right here. So if we're looking at this, just historically speaking, if we zoom in here, you can see that there's this neat little pocket of territory right here. So these are the Himalayas, by the way, the highest mountain range in the world. And there's this weird little pocket of space right there. Well, that's called the Ghor, and it's spelled Ghor. But there are some really, really uniquely interesting people that live there called the Gurids. who would one day go on to take over most of northern India and a part of this region out here after they converted to Islam. But that's not until later on in the 1000s. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I just chase rabbits, and I love that stuff because I'm kind of like a history addict. Jay Axer, whoop whoop, good to see you, man. Welcome, welcome. Dragons, indeed. Can I hear me out? Can I pet the dragon? Your pet? I mean, you could if you're really interested. It would be really cool to go to Afghanistan if it weren't so dangerous. This is accurate. I would love to go to Afghanistan and hang out. There's so much cool history there. Stuff going all the way back to Alexander the Great's period. It's just good stuff. New world problems. What to do with all this gold? KP coming through with the quick memes. All right, so Vima, he makes himself a new capital city. This is truly an international city. There are people coming to this capital city from all over the world. It is part of the big changeover spots for the Silk Road trade routes. You have spices coming out of India. You have silk coming out of China. You have gold coming out of Africa. You have horses and stuff coming out of Central Asia. There's just so much stuff going on in Bagram. It's really honking cool stuff. And we actually, historians and archaeologists, not me, have actually excavated Bagram. And one of the cool things that was found there is, of course, something that we can't use anymore because people are idiots and can't do things responsibly. All these really cool pieces of ivory artwork. So let's switch over. There is an entire set, by the way. If you want to Google Bagram ivories, there is an entire set of about 100 different pieces that came from the palace in Bagram. These are covered. These people would be wearing very thin silk shawls. They are not exposed. But you can see here the detail. This is the back of a throne. So the back part of a chair. But then you see also stuff like this, which is super cool. Here's a griffin that has been carved. Griffins are not necessarily native to this region's mythology. Griffins are a bit more central to Europe and around the coastline of the Mediterranean, yet here we see this great ivory griffin in the capital, Bagram. So, yeah, cool stuff. These guys are living the high life. They have all sorts of really cool things. They're living in really big palaces. They're having all sorts of stuff. And the art is going to have influence from all over the world. You were honestly hoping to say griffins aren't native to this region. I would love to go also to Afghanistan. Isn't internally weeping at all. I don't know what you mean. You're fine. Yeah, sorry. Going to Afghanistan would be amazing. It would just be so cool. It's basic, but you were on the clock. Cool. Control of or alternatives to the Silk Road inspired much of our history. The spice must flow. Indeed, Vern, and there is a lot of truth to that saying, because the Silk Road itself is not going to be something that you just move down when it comes to trade goods. There are going to be people walking down these roads. Let's remember this. Anywhere a person goes, that person brings with them their life experience, their history, and their biases, and their views, and their religion, and their language. And one of the reasons the Kushan Empire has such cool stuff from all over the world is because there are so many different people moving through it, right? And these people are coming from Iran, and they're bringing with them Zoroastrianism, and people are coming from India, and they're bringing with them Hinduism and Buddhism, and people are coming from the Greek parts of the Roman world and bringing the Greek gods over. But you even see the sort of Alexandrian flavored Greek gods like Serapis show up. These people are bringing with them their ideology. And the Silk Road is a highway for trade goods, but it's also a highway for ideas. And there is so much stuff that moves through the Silk Road, through history, that it is a really big part of what makes people what it is. The plague, the Black Plague, follows the Silk Road to get over into Europe during the reign of Justinian and wipes out all sorts of people over here in the world. The Big Plague, the Mongolians were mostly following these Silk Road trade routes when they were coming over this way, and they brought the plague with them. A zone of peril, a zone of anger, a danger zone, a melting pot before it was cool. Right. America likes to claim this idea that we are the original melting pot. The Kushan Empire had us beat by over 1,000 years, so just saying. And I'm not trying to say that America is lesser for that. I'm just saying that we were not the first place that had a multicultural group of people that made it work and made it work well. There are very few conflicts inside of the Kushan Empire. You very rarely hear about things like revolts. You very rarely hear about dynastic issues, especially so like this 100-year period of time that we're talking about right now, from basically, well, you know, Vima takes over in 95, all the way up until the 190s, we have 3 rulers. Now, how crazy is that when we're talking about Rome? You know, Rome has this period of time where there's 4 emperors in 1 year. But here's the Kushan Empire that has 4 emperors that last over 100 years, because this country is really stable and it really makes it work. And just to be honest, it doesn't hurt that they're so filthy rich, right? Because there's enough money to go around. Highway to the Ranger Zone. It's also a highway for royal marriages across pretty vast areas. Yep. And we'll actually talk about that in just a second when we get to Kanishka. We'll talk about some royal marriage questions. Almost as if humans are disease vectors. Gasp. Introducing new gods, now an Alexandrian flavor. That's actually kind of the way that it worked, because Serapis was not originally a god. It's sort of a merged version of a couple of gods. So, Imperial metric, what's the third ruler? Work well, you don't know about that? Poverty, throw some money at it, right? Okay, so Vima's a cool dude. He does do a little bit of expansion. He expands sort of northward here and fully takes over the last little bit of a remnant of independent Bactria, which is sort of this region right about here, adds that to the growing list of territories, and comes with all sorts of really neat cities, including the old Greco-Bactrian capital, which of course was, you know, a trade city. So Vima, cool dude, rules for quite some time, but then dies because, well, you know, that's what happens when you get old, right? So next we have Kanishka. And Kanishka is very frequently referred to as Kanishka the Great, because he's going to be a pretty big deal. He looks like the break screen. He looks like this. Here's Kanishka. Bum, ba, da, bum. He's got a neat hat too. Not so much like a tea kettle. What a coincidence. So am I. Everybody's a big deal, right? So Kanishka, when he takes over, he's going to be interested in expanding. But before we get really into why he wants to expand, we need to back up just a little bit and talk about relationships between China and the Kushan Empire. Whoop, I'm sorry, my mouse is going completely bonkers. So China over here and the Kushan Empire. Now, if you have been with us in the past, you'll know that the Han Dynasty China, under the first 100 years, or the first century AD or CE, was very powerful, very unified, and it was another one of these stable periods of time where they had a few rulers that ruled a really long time that did a lot of good things for the people. But they had expanded all the way out to take over this region right here. Now, this region is referred to as the Tarim Basin. And this is super important links in the Silk Road. There are a few cities that are around the northern rim of this Tarim Basin that are going to be key links in the Silk Road. And when the Han Dynasty moves over into this area and takes those over, that's going to greatly increase the amount of money coming into China. But the Kushans are a lot closer. They're sitting right here. The Tarim Basin is just over the pass. China's got to come all the way from over here. Their capital is a place called Luoyang, which is right over here. That's a long way to go. Now, the difference is that China had a much higher population. They had been around a lot longer than the Kushan Empire had, and they had a much more stable bureaucratic structure that ran not only their government and tax system more efficiently, but also kept their military in line. So, even though China's further away from this area, they're going to still have the upper hand. Looks like a bird is trying to swallow his head. Necklace. Spell check is weird. Okay. Shell necklace. Ah, there we go. Is that a shell necklace? Let me go. Back to the... Oops, sorry. I'm not seeing a shell. This is like a clasp for his cloak here. He's got sort of like an A-line cloak that clasps right here on the chest and leaves the legs open. This would, of course, be a lot better for riding. You don't want a cloak that buttons all the way down the front if you're going to be on a horse. You want something that's got a nice open front. So here's his sword. This would be the clasp that goes over his shoulders. This is sort of like the stylistic waving of the cloak out behind him. I don't see a shell. So this is like the two little clicks there. The protrusion on the left. Vern, I am... Oh, this thing? That's one of those symbols that is going to sort of be his symbolic representation. Oh yeah, this guy. Looks like a conch. Oh, okay. Yes, he has the conch, so therefore he can speak. Gotta love all the random stuff that comes up in the background, right? Ancient fashion would be interesting to look at. It would. There's enough stuff out there that you could do some pretty in-depth discussions about particular fashions. Knock 'em smart. Good to see a Figment. Hope everybody has a good one. Believe that stunning garment is a kaftan. Yes! There we go. We got 3 kids, only 2 talk, but we're analyzing a film, so at least it's an interesting topic. All right. Everybody gets to watch the movies. Everybody loves when the movies get to play in, right? So, over here in this Tarim Basin, there's going to be a lot of debate, especially over who these people are going to ally with. Well, the Chinese are going to have the upper hand, but there are people running around in this area that are not under Chinese influence, and these people, especially the Xiongnu and then later the Xianbei, are always going to be trying to take control of these cities in the Tarim Basin from China. And early on in the 80s, this is back in the 1st century, the Kushan Empire had allied with China to sort of defend this area in exchange for friendship and preferable trade deals. But they got stiffed. The Chinese had this arrangement with the Xiongnu. It's called Heiqin. It's this principle where they would send lower-level noble girls up to marry higher-level Xiongnu males to sort of, bolster the Xiongnu's opinions of themselves. So the Kushan Empire said, hey, what if you sent some of your noble women over here to marry us? And the Han Dynasty said, thanks for helping us run off those barbarians, but no, you're not going to get any of our daughters. Sorry, deuces. So about a decade later, the Kushans decide, well, we're going to try to take the Tarim Basin from you. And they show up with a fairly sizable army, but the Chinese push them out. And this is in 90. So in 90 and 91, somewhere in there, the Kushan Empire is defeated. They have this big army, and they're going to end up having to go home to lick their wounds. But by the time we get to the early 2nd century, so around 100, from about 100 to 120, the imperial system of China is going to become very weak. The emperors are going to be run by their in-laws and a group of court ministers that are all eunuchs. Thugger and Guwop. You're late but excited. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. We don't take roll and we don't give out gold stars or anything, so you're welcome to come in whenever you want. You made them watch the original Jumanji? Oh, good times. Yeah. So we're all super laid back here. Nobody's going to say anything about it. Feel free to participate at whatever level you want. If you want to chat, you can chat. If you want to ask questions, ask yourself some questions. If you want to throw random facts in there, you can even do that too. That's fine. If you want to just hit some lurks, everybody that's doing your lurk thing, you do your lurk thing. It's all good. We're all friends here, right? So China becomes pretty weak. And there's going to be a moment where China has to sort of prop up their control of this area. They're going to send this guy that's one of their top generals over into the Tarim Basin, and his name is Ban Chao. And here we go. Boom. So this is a mural, and here we have Ban Chao, who of course is this very regal, great-looking dude here with the super flowy robes. And he is giving a crown to this guy over here. So this guy is the king of a city in the Tarim Basin called Kashgar. And what this is basically trying to show here is that China, oh, look at China, they're big and cool. They have the back of our leaders. Isn't that nice? This is pretty clearly propaganda kind of stuff here. Ban Chao is clearly trying to get this guy to recognize who's really in control. The old, you get put on the throne by us. That means you can get yanked off the throne by us. So Ban Chao is going to be initially a pretty strong leader for the Chinese in the Tarim Basin. But with more pressure coming from the Kushan Empire, that's eventually going to change. And what ends up happening is that the central authority of the Han Dynasty is completely degrading, right? It's falling apart. The emperor is losing control of the borders because the emperor doesn't really care about the borders, because the emperor is more focused on keeping his in-laws happy. And Ban Chao is sitting out here with no support from the central authority, no real money to keep his armies up, and he has to start taxing the Tarim Basin pretty heavy. Just so happens that there might be somebody else that would maybe be willing to ally with these several Tarim Basin cities that would not tax them so much. And if you're thinking, hey, this is the Kushan's moment, this is clearly their moment. So Ban Chao ends up getting revoked. They basically run him out about 107. And then the kings of the Tarim Basin are sort of like, hey, we're on the market. Anybody interested in making trade deals with us? Anybody interested in, setting up some lucrative side deals, taxation breaks, perhaps marriage offers, anything that you'd be interested in? And the city that is going to be particularly involved in this is a city called Kashgar, which is still it's still a city today. It's actually one of the cities that's right here on the border of modern China, right about here. Boop. We won't backstab you, we promise. We're clearly not backstabbing the people that we are allied to now. We will make an alliance with you, and we will be true and good friends. Yeah, we all know how this is going to go, right? Well, so the city of Kashgar and the king of Kashgar is initially allied with the Chinese. Yeah, we'll make it the little ooh-woo face, like, we will be your best friends. So, because of this uncomfortable situation, there is actually a dispute inside of Kashgar over who's going to get to be the next king. And one guy kicks his brother out. And his brother runs to the Kushans, because the brother that won, that took over being the king, was on the pro-China side. So the Kushans now have a guy from the royal family of Kashgar that has a claim to the throne because his dad was king. Yes, it's the last line here, Kashgar. Or, sorry, Kashgar. Kashgar, yes. the very profitable fish, the Kashgar, found in swamps all over the south. Guards are super ancient fish, by the way. Anyway, so when the king dies, now the older guy that should have been king to begin with has a more direct claim to the throne, and now things inside Kashgar are getting really messy. And this goes on from about 114 to about 133. So this is going to be it's going to begin during the reign of Vima, but it's going to end under the rule of Kanishka here, where there's this dispute over who actually runs Kashgar. Is it the Kushan-backed ruler or is it the Chinese-backed ruler? And for a little while, the Kushans are going to be able to take over. They're going to push into the Tarim Basin. They're going to put their guy on the throne of Kashgar, and they're even going to start expanding here along the northern rim to maybe take in the entire Tarim Basin. And now that would be a pretty big move, because this is sort of like one-upping the big neighbor on the block. But again, China was falling apart. And as soon as the Chinese realize that they are falling apart and that they are losing one of the most profitable portions of their empire, they have to respond. And they're going to do that really big and very rapidly. And the Chinese are going to take Kashgar back. And that's in 133. But Kanishka recognizes how much that cost the Chinese. Because again, the imperial authority at that point has been shrinking steadily. Almost year by year, China was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So to afford to send this big army over here to retake all of the Tarim Basin cost them a lot. It looks like a blank desert. What's so special about it? So if we zoom in here, right here along the edge, you have all of this nice fertile territory that is fed by snows from these mountains. So there's a big city right in here. There's a big city right here. There's a big city right here. And there's a big city right here. And then there's a Kashgar, which is, well, actually kind of right about here. So even though the Tarim Basin itself is pretty empty, you can see that there are fertile parts that are fed by these snowfalls and melts that keep this area fertile. And you had to have this sort of little pass, because otherwise you were going to go through the mountains, which was a big no-no, or through this desert, which is, again, a big no-no. So these little chain of cities right here was super important to hold on to. Cost them a lot. Had they spent all their money making money? No, they had spent all of their money on big parties and buying stuff for the Empress Dowager, and buying stuff for, at that point, the brother-in-law of the emperor at the time, who was a giant jerk. And there's a VOD for that you can go watch if you're interested. Yes, it's the outer rim of the basin that we're after. So this northern chunk right around here. This part is important strategically, but this part is where you really want to control. So Kanishka just decides we're going to wait. We're going to wait for the Chinese to kind of keep falling apart. And he was smart enough to know that they were going to fall apart. And fall apart they did, which is why in 152, Kanishka loads up a really big army and moves up to take all of this territory and in here to the Tarim Basin. And we see coins of his circulating all through this area. Whether or not he had direct control of all of these cities is in question, but he definitely had influence. These cities basically had to suck up to him because he controlled their outlet. They were not really going to get anything out of this area if it wasn't going through his territory. And that puts a lot of negotiating power. Like, do you want to sell all of your stuff, or do you want me to just say, no, I'm not going to take any of it? Or do you want fair deals for your goods, or do you want me to give you pennies on the dollar? So when your one seller is basically hamstringing your political situation, you pretty much have to do what they want you to do, right? The usual things that you spend money on, right? Loose living. So at the same time Kanishka is doing that, he's also looking at this region down here, northern India. Especially this really nice, fertile northern basin right here, which is partially the Ganges River Basin, but also partially the Indus River Basin, which is right here. Now, there were several states that existed inside of India already. The largest one was a group called the Satavahana, and they controlled mostly this sort of central Deccan Plateau region right around in here. But they had interests in this area, and I guess I could type Satavahana for you if you're interested in Googling this. Satavahana. Cool stuff. But Kanishka wants this territory, mostly because it has big cities, mostly because it represents legitimacy. The ancient capital of several of these old kingdoms in India was this city right about here called Pataliputra. He would really love to hold that city because he is trying to make himself the great. He wants to be remembered. He wants to expand his influence and expand his influence. He does. Now, there's a little bit of a question about what's going on here. We know that sometime during his reign, or perhaps prior to his reign, earlier on in his life, Kanishka is going to convert to Buddhism. And apparently he is going to be, based on the amount of building that he does, a very ardent Buddhist. And this is another reason why he would want to expand down here into this northern India region, because that's where the Buddha lived. And a lot of the big, famous, ancient Buddhist monasteries were here. The big Buddhist stupas are in this region. So there's that air of legitimacy, right? If you control these big cities, you make yourself more powerful just by claiming them as part of your territory. So he's going to move down into India, and he's going to sort of start playing these little kingdoms off of each other. And he's going to do this mostly because it was fairly easy to do. There were a group of people over here in this region that are sometimes referred to as the Western satrapies. Other times you might see them referred to as the Sakas. You might see this region referred to as Sakistan. Either way, he's going to start playing then a little bit off the Satavahana. There's another group over here called the Kalinga that he can play off of. But basically, he's going to be able to move into this northern part of India without terribly much fighting. And based on something that's called the Ratabak inscription, and I actually have a picture of this for us. Boom. I love showing these ancient inscriptions, by the way. It's super cool. So this is the... not Sokkas, like Sokka from Avatar. Sokka, like that. He's the sword master. Anyway, so here's the Ratabak inscription. This was made during the reign of Kanishka, and this sort of lists all of the cool things that he did, all of the places that he conquered, all of the people that he took over, all of the cities that were under his domain. Pretty cool stuff, right? Swordmaster for like one episode, yeah, and then conveniently forgotten. Looks Greek to me. It's a mix of Greek and native stuff. It's a Greco-Bactrian language. Again, these people are really, really multicultural. So Kanishka does expand a lot, and he brings a lot of territory under the control. He's going to establish a city called Mathura as a sort of southern capital to go along with Bagram, and he's going to add a lot. So you knew you weren't going to get away from this stream without me showing you a map. And I've pointed to Google Earth quite a bit, but we actually do have a map here. And let's look at that. So what we can see here in this really sort of dark green is the Kushan Empire. See, we have Bactria here. Here's Bagram. Taxila, which is another one of these super big ancient cities that was really important, going all the way back to the groups like the Guptas. Mathura, his new capital. Here we have the western satraps. We see the Satavahana, the Pandyas, the Cholas, Tamparani. Anyway, this stuff here, this sort of dotted in area, this is the territory that is likely added to the Kushan Empire under Kanishka. And this is a lot of good stuff. So here we have Turfan, Kucha, and Kashgar. So again, here's Kashgar, that good trade city. So this is a lot of territory that he's adding, and it's also a lot of money. Money. Gotta love the money. And I love maps too. I almost and sort of wanted to get a degree in geography. I've liked geography going all the way back to elementary school. It's just cool stuff, man. So again, he's a very strong Buddhist. He's going to build a lot of temples. He's going to rebuild a lot of temples. Using some of this massive amounts of influx, he's going to repair and expand a lot of monasteries and temples. He's going to be interesting because he's also going to sort of be the guy who's in charge when some interesting stuff happens. And that interesting stuff is kind of this. You see here the Buddha, and he's sitting cross-legged with some bodhisattvas behind him and some bodhisattvas below here. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, the reason it's such a big deal is because that sort of art had not really ever been done before. There had not really been a lot of images of the Buddha. But Kanishka is going to put images of the Buddha on his coins. He's going to put images of the Buddha on a lot of these temples. And if you've ever seen a seated cross-legged Buddha, this guy's going to have a lot to be, or a lot to do with that becoming a sort of standardized way to depict Buddha. Now, he had been shown that way prior, but it was not a uniform thing. Kanishka is going to put these images of Buddha everywhere, all over the place, on all of the buildings, on decorations, on his money, on inscriptions and rocks and stuff, just all over the place. You're going to start seeing Buddhas, and Buddhas everywhere. And that's pretty important, because now when we think Buddhism, one of the first things that pops into people's mind is the Buddha, right? The seated little guy with the hand up and, the big earlobes. That's so Greek. It's interesting. It is. The idea of making visual images of your religious figures is a very Greek/Roman thing to do. But he's a Kushan. But he has exposure to Greek stuff, right? The Greeks had a history in this region going all the way back to Alexander the Great. He's trading with people that have Greco-Hellenistic backgrounds. There are Greek gods that show up on Kanishka's coins. Because again, these guys are super multi-regional. And it's really cool that this stuff happens this way. I hope I'm getting that across to everybody. Buddhist PR. Yeah, it's on all the signage. We're just going to put Buddha everywhere. But what's neat about this is that even though Kanishka himself appears to be just overwhelmingly super Buddhist, what we don't see is a crackdown on other languages. Other religions. We don't see historical accounts of Zoroastrians being persecuted, or Hindus being persecuted, or Jewish populations being persecuted, or Greco-Bactrian, Greek-worshipping pagans, what you might call people, being persecuted. And I'm not trying to say that people had what we might consider complete religious freedom in the Kushan Empire, but there were a lot of acceptable options, which made this region really unique in the ancient world. That Buddha strikes as rather androgynous. There's something to be said about that. I personally don't know enough about the specific artistic style to say if that was done on purpose. But this is very much an evolution of what will become the Mahayana Buddha, because Mahayana Buddhism is actually going to become sort of a recognized denomination of Buddhism during this period of time. Hype for a non-binary Buddha. And it might have been because one of the things that we do see quite a bit, especially in Hindu imagery, are gods that show up as either female external or male external. A lot of the avatars of some of the Hindu gods are shown up either as completely androgynous, or you can see like Shiva as a woman, or you can see Shiva as a man, or you can see Vishnu as a woman, or Vishnu as a man. So it could very well be, and I'm not saying this for certain. This is a potential opinion. No, not even an opinion. It's a potential hypothesis based on decent background imagery, that because there was such a big Hindu influence inside of the Kushan Empire, that they might have done things to look a bit more androgynous, because that was a Hindu art sort of thing, sort of an art trope. Now, was that the case? I don't know. I could not say for certain. It would not surprise me if it were, though. So I hope that addresses the point there, Honeycomb. I try my best to stay out of, oh yeah, that's clearly what it is, when I don't know. I'll be fine just saying I don't know, because I don't know. That'd be neat to look up, though. I'm sure that there are some people, especially in the last probably 20 years or so, that have done some scholarly art history stuff on that. So it might be out there, and I just don't know about it. All right, so another thing that Kanishka is going to be responsible for is promoting Buddhism. Now, we've talked about older Gupta Empire promotion of Buddhism under a guy named Ashoka, but that's way back in like the 300s BC. Or BCE, however you want to say it. What we're talking about here is active missionary work, where Kanishka finds missionaries and sends them to other places. And one of them is a guy named Lokaksema, who is this guy. Ba-dum-bum. Not knowing is fine? Yeah, it is fine. And I think it's okay to say I don't know. One of the things that history has a big problem with is saying, well, here's this, or well, maybe, or here, how about, and then they try to stand on stuff, and then that becomes a position that they have to take. I think historians, especially modern historians, need to be able to say that they don't know. And I think it's fine to not know. Because again, this is over 1,700 years ago. It's a long time ago to know exactly why somebody was doing something. We can make good guesses, but that doesn't mean we have to know every single motivation ever. Anyway, so this guy is Lokaksema, who was a Buddhist missionary that gets sent to China. It looks like he's using a computer tablet. He's writing, so these are his writing instruments. These rolls here that are down here on the corner would have been strips of bamboo that he's writing on. That was actually a fairly common system of writing back in the day before they had really finalized paper. But what's interesting about China during this period of time is that they're actively working on making good paper, which is going to be one of the things that gets moved around on the Silk Road a lot more than people think about. So anyway, that was, by the way, a Chinese historical photograph of this Kushan missionary that comes bringing Mahayana Buddhism into China. So if you know anything about modern China, there are a lot of Buddhist people that are still there, and they are predominantly of the Mahayana division. That comes all the way back to this period of time. So he's checking his emails. He's clearly changing the toner on the printer. And he's going to have it like blow up in his face, and his entire robe is going to just be covered with, oh man, I hated changing toner. And it gets all over your hands, and you can't touch anything, and then your nose itches, and you end up looking like Hitler because you have this black mark right here. Yeah, that's happened before, right? Everybody's had that happen. Anyway, Kanishka is a powerful ruler. He rules for quite some time, well, 23 years, but in that 23 years, he really expands the territory that's under the Kushan Empire. He's going to do a lot to promote Buddhism. He's going to build a lot of stuff, grow a lot of stuff, and the empire is going to flourish under his reign. And if you were a leader, isn't that the best thing that you can say, right? That my people flourished under my rule. Isn't that something that everybody could sort of hope for? I would hope for that. All right, so the next guy that takes over, so Kanishka gets old and dies, and the guy that takes over is a guy named Huvishka, who looks like this. Now, this guy right here is actually Huvishka. This is a picture of him and several people making a pilgrimage to a shrine. The stuff in the bowl here would be an offering. I don't know exactly what sort of offering it is. Likely some sort of food. But this is an offering that would be given to a shrine. So this guy is Huvishka. I do have one of his coins. Ba-dum-ba-dum. Not as impressive on the beard front, but blows it away with the hat front. This is coolest hat, hands down. He's getting 8.5 to 9 on this headgear stuff. Even if the beard is non-existent, you got to give him the hat. I bet that made you think of the Father Ted episode where he said, yes, looks to me like a bowl of rocks or rotten veggies, and they're all at a crowd stoning. Yes, this is clearly karaoke night. Here is his microphone. He's got his spear here to stab anybody that's going to criticize his choice. He's going to sing Wonderwall by Oasis, and if anybody groans, you get the spear. Because he's the emperor, and if Huvishka wants to sing Wonderwall, you're gonna clap, and you're gonna say today is going to be the day. Right? It's just what happens. So he rules from 150 to 180. This is going to be a really good time for the Kushan Empire. Now, he's not really going to do... Go back to the stoning image. It's not a stoning image. We know because of the fact that it was literally outside of a temple that it was him bringing an offering. These people would have been penitents. You can see them. They have their arms up ready to throw. They're holding stuff. This is a crescent moon. We don't know what that is. This guy has a cluster of grapes, maybe. I don't think that they're getting ready to stone people. Well, I mean, this is a pretty common motif. Like, if we go back to this guy, like, look down here, see? Is he throwing this sheaf of wheat? Or is he just holding it? Is he going to throw this bundle of flowers? Or is he just holding it? He's spanking the griffin. Okay, look, Cave. What you do in your personal time is your own stuff, but let's not talking about people spanking the griffin on stream. Anyway, so what's up with Huvishka? So he's not going to be super interested in expanding, but what he is going to be interested in doing is making his empire prosperous. And he does that quite well. The amount of gold coins that come out under Huvishka's reign is stupendous. They're going to show influence from people all over the world. You're going to see Mithras, you're going to see Shiva, Serapis, you're going to see Ahura Mazda, Buddhist Bodhisattvas. These people are going to be really throwing out this multicultural vibe like crazy under Huvishka's reign. The buildings that he's going to construct are going to have inscriptions in multiple languages that are appropriate to where they are. You see Greco-Bactrian sort of used as a baseline, but if we're further north in the Greek territories, you're going to see Greco-Bactrian and Greek. If you're further down in India, you might see Sanskrit or Brahmi. But they're going to be very cognizant, again, of this idea that there are a lot of different people living in this empire, and they're going to make an attempt to reach out to these people where they are, which is super cool. Spank the Griffin is now your favorite term. Well, I'm glad that you got something out of tonight, Cave. We see trade expanding. One of the things that happens expansively under Huvishka's reign is naval trade, and especially trade between this part of the Indian coastline and the Red Sea. So again, at this point, Rome controlled Egypt, the Sinai Peninsula, and all of the Levantine region. So this part of the Egyptian coastline was a great conduit between India and Rome. And the reason that this was so easy to do is because of advances in shipping. There's a big advance in naval and maritime technology during this period because it's a viable route. Why not exploit it? Also, there's a little bit of stuff going on over here that is causing a bit of trouble for the Kushans. There's a group of people right around here from a family called the Sasanians. They're causing a bit of a stir in the Parthian Empire. If you want to hang around for our next Adventures in History story, we'll talk a lot about what's going on over here in Parthia. They're kind of falling apart. Spoiler alert. But this sea route here avoids that. And the trade between Rome and the Kushans is going to just blow up during this period of time. It's super big. So much so that we see Christian Roman writers in Egypt over here referring to Buddhism because they know about Buddhism, because one of the things that Huvishka is also doing is pushing Buddhism. There are Buddhist missionaries that are pretty clearly getting all the way over here into the Roman world from the Kushan Empire. And that's just weird stuff. So the particular writer, by the way, is Clement. If you want to read that, you can actually go find that reference for free in translation online. This is a pretty cool period of time. I love this group a lot. The Kushans are really fascinating to me. The fact that they made this work for so long with such a different group of people. And again, it's not just different language. It's different language, it's different religion, it's different ethnic groups, it's different cultural backgrounds. And yet, their rulers were able to keep the peace. And again, we haven't talked about a rebellion inside of the Kushan Empire at all today. Meanwhile, Rome has had multiple attempts at coups. Parthia is falling apart, the Han Dynasty is falling apart, and the Kushan Empire is thriving. It's just a super neat period of time, and they're a cool group of people. Now, Huvishka is going to have an unfortunate turn of events, and it's going to be back over here in the Tarim Basin. There's going to be some warlords that are starting to take over parts of China at this point. At the end of the 2nd century, China is going to start fracturing, and there are going to be military dictators that basically take over big chunks of the empire. And one of those big generals is going to decide that he wants to retake the Tarim Basin. And he wants to control that portion of the trade. So, in 170, there's a pretty big pitched war here between the Kushan Empire and some of these Chinese warlords. And the Kushans are going to lose control of the cities here, Tirfan and Kashgar especially. So the Kushans are going to lose some of that regional influence in the area. Now, they're still going to have a lot of money from trade, but when you're negotiating from the loser's position, you're not going to be able to negotiate as strong. And they're going to end up losing some of that. This is not going to be a direct cause of the Kushan collapse, but when we come back to talk about the Kushan Empire in the next phase, they're not going to make it through. They only make it, well, they'll make it through the next one, but it barely. I don't want to spoil too much. We'll just say that for the night, I have hit all of the stuff that I would like to talk about. So there's the Kushan Empire, the golden age of the Kushan Empire. They definitely knew when to gold them and when to fold them. Really cool group of people. So, as always, if there are questions about any of this stuff, I would be happy to answer them. If anybody has any tangent stuff that they want to go off and talk about, you're welcome to. Remember that below you in the chat, you have a great little icon of the adventure hat, and you can summon the adventure hat, and I will do that, or you can cash those in for various fun little ways to interact here on stream. Otherwise, I think we can start maybe looking for somewhere to raid. But we don't have to. Again, if you all want to redeem points or ask questions or bring up anything, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll see who is around on the Twitch. Spank the Griffin. There we go. Let's slip the puppy of war. All right, let me call the puppy. I have a feeling that she's probably asleep on the couch up front, so it might take just a second for me to get her up. Let me call the puppy. Yeah, Batbird. We'll do a viewer request next time. Come here. Come here. Come and see me. Oh, yes, they have asked for you. They have asked for the puppy. Look. Yeah, it's the puppy. Hello. Hello, puppy. Oh, my goodness. What are you doing? What are you doing? Woof. Woof. She has her fox. It's like a three-tailed fox thing that she loves. She's completely demolished the thing, and it's basically just a scrap now, but she still loves it. Oh, give it to me. Oh, give it to me. Arr. 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 You got it? Arr. Arr. She loves tug of war. It's one of her favorite things. You want to get that part? The part that you like? It's all slobbery. Oh, it's so gross. Arr. Arr. We're going to try to keep you up here extra long since a couple of people asked. You want to come up here and see me? Well, come on. Come here, you big baby. Come here. Come on. Oh, yes. There's the puppy. Give me sugars. Here, can you give me sugars? Hey. Hey. Hey, give me sugars on... Give me sugars up here? No? You just want your toy and you want to go back up front? Okay. Okay. Oh yes, we shall let slip the puppies of war. Share them if you got them. Oh man. All right. Anybody else? Got any questions? Want to do anything? Want to talk about anything? I'm going to look for somebody to raid. Thank you for gracing us with the puppy. She is a mess. Quite a mess. A mess and a half. But she's usually a good puppy. Usually a good puppy. All right. Okay, so what's in the news? Joey, you got anything specific you want me to talk about, or just what's going on in the news? Because I could do either. I could just, go at it, just whatever. Bad news only. Moose, I actually found a good news website, and I can share good news today, which is something that I think Moose is always pushing me to do. So, okay, good news. There are some researchers over in England at the University of Oxford that have figured out that there's a particular type of mollusk. Well, I guess technically it's a mussel. But the mussel can filter microplastics out of water, and it doesn't hurt the mussel. Basically, they can filter out the microplastics and then they just poop it out. And they are currently doing research to see how much plastic they might be able to potentially cover up, because as these mussels are, they're native wildlife, they could be used to maybe plant colonies of these mussels in oceans at particular points where microplastics are particularly bad, and help filter out the microplastics that we've been dumping into the ocean. So that's pretty good news. So there's one. But I even looked up two because I wanted to make sure that I was able to do double good news to make up for all of the bad news that I typically share. In Russia, there are some scientists that have been doing Alzheimer's research, and they have figured out a particular type of treatment that they can use to protect neurons from plaque accumulation. So if you know anything about Alzheimer's, one of the things that makes you mentally degrade is that plaque basically gets stuck on the nerves in your brain, which keep them from being able to fire and work in the right way. So if this treatment actually works, it could be used as a preventative to keep people from getting Alzheimer's, but it could also vastly slow down the effects of Alzheimer's once you are, or if you are potentially diagnosed with it. So there's two really great pieces of news. And I hope that gives everybody a bit of an uplift here. You know that the Kushan Empire can exist for centuries and be multicultural and make it work, and we might be able to clean up the oceans, and we may be able to stop Alzheimer's. So, hey Nori, good to see you. Good stuff, right? Yeah, so I was happy to find that. Okay, so anything else? Anybody have any questions, or anybody want to spend some more points, or make sure if you are interested, you donate to the community goals. We have a community goal going for our We Didn't Start the Fire episode, where basically we take the song We Didn't Start the Fire, and then we go through it like line by line, and I give you a little bit of a blurb about each one of those on the way. So pretty cool stuff. Also, you can donate towards having another History of Middle-earth stream. I'm a giant Tolkien nerd, and if you like Tolkien, you can come hang out, and we basically talk about the world of Middle-earth just like we would a history discussion. So there's something that you can do. What does that mean? I'm not sure what is that. I'm not sure what that is. Entire stream. Yes. So there's a song called "We Didn't Start the Fire," and it's by Billy Joel. It's "We didn't start the fire," but the verses are a collection of historical references, and each one of them has basically a connection to this particular period of history. Basically the song is just a bunch of history references. So that's pretty cool, and we'll be doing a stream where if once we get to the thing, we'll be getting to that, and I'll do a whole talk about what that is, what each one of the little parts of the verses mean. So I am currently searching for history and educational, and I'm looking to see who might be on out there to find somebody new to go raid. Unless anybody has any sort of preferences. I mean, I've got several people that are on my friends list that we could go raid. I'm not trying to dissuade us from going to see somebody. But what I am interested in doing a bit, if we can, is maybe expanding our circle and going to find more friends and talk to different people out there. So I am currently looking in the educational channel to see if there's anybody that actually looks like they're doing educational material, and I have to say there's not a lot out there. Oh, ask a philosopher. This sounds interesting. Yeah, okay. So let's go raid a philosopher. This guy's a philosophy professor. He is doing a chat here, and we're gonna go raid him. His name is Aristotle, which I think is kind of funny. But yeah, let's go. All right. So we're gonna go raid Aristotle. Heads up. I've never been to this person's channel before. I do not endorse this person. I don't know anything about this person. We're kind of going on blind luck. So let's go see what's going on over there. Thank you all so very much for hanging out. I have such a great time seeing all of you. Keep an eyeball on the Discord for announcements about upcoming episodes. Probably an episode Tuesday on Rasputin. I'm not 100% certain, but probably. Otherwise, be nice to Aristotle. Show him some love. Our battle cry, raid cry, is adventure with lots of exclamation points. And if you have those oh so lovely adventure hats, throwing that emote into the chat as well would be great. Thank you all so very much, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.